I met Sarah in Sober in the City in Palm Springs, where she led discussions on how to have sex sober without alcohol. And I think it's just such a great topic because oftentimes with my clients, we'll talk about how to manage and navigate a relationship, how to talk about being alcohol free, how to make sure you keep bonding. But I don't know that I've broached sex on this topic. So, welcome, Sarah, to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So, Sarah, tell the listeners a little about who you are and your background. We'd love to know.
Yeah, sure. My name is Sarah Olsen, and I'm the founder of Put It Down Lifestyle. And we are a group of women who want to help other women put it down. And when I say put it down, I really mean anything that we are carrying that is not serving us, throw it down to the ground to make room for all of those beautiful things that will. So we really aspire, especially with alcohol free women who want to go alcohol free, to show that life does not stop when we stop drinking. And me, myself, I have been sober almost 3 years, which I'm really excited about. And I've really made it a point because my biggest fear to stop drinking was that life would stop. And so I've been kind of on a search for, how can I feel that high on life feeling as much as possible in my life? And guess what? It is like totally working. I'm married for 3 years now, and I have a 14-year-old daughter. So this topic is actually great because having a little girl who's growing up, I feel like I'm able to be a lot wiser to help her understand the world she's about to go into. And I have
Oh,
2 dogs, a cat and a lizard.
awesome. Well, I think that we can go so far with this, and just really recognizing like how intertwined alcohol is with dating,
Oh,
you know, falling for someone, with sex lives, whether you're in a relationship,
mhm.
seeing people. And I love how you bring up your daughter because like you just brought me back to like being in my teens and 20s. And like I wonder if I grew up in a parallel universe where alcohol didn't exist, how different my teens and
Different.
20s, like how much less trauma and pain I might have had if alcohol wasn't involved, right?
Yes.
Um, Tell us, how did you change your relationship with alcohol?
Oh, man. So, my story isn't very different from a lot of women. I progressively started drinking more and more. And when I think back into my early 30s, I don't remember drinking every day. I think I was more of a binge drinker. Like if my daughter was with her dad, or we were divorced, my daughter was with her dad, that I go out and party that weekend. And then it just kind of got easier and easier to open that bottle of wine every night. And then COVID hit. So, like a lot of women, men, I started opening that bottle not every night, but every afternoon. And one of these moments that kind of hit me was when I was taking a bottle that I had had for lunch and pushing it down in the trash can. And I was like, oh my God, I am hiding this. And I kind of had that moment like, ooh, this isn't good. And so my big aha moment, and I'm a big believer, and I really love the fact that I'm able to teach my daughter this. I didn't necessarily stop because there was a rock bottom moment. I just really hated feeling like crap all the time. And I really, truly was. I was waking up tired. I didn't have any energy. I'm gaining weight. I want to feel younger. And none of that was happening. And I was on this big spiritual journey, getting my Reiki master certification and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm just not feeling all this stuff. What's going on? And when my husband and I got married in August of 2020, I thought I was being very responsible. And I was said, okay, daughter, I'm going to send you away after the ceremony, 2 o'clock. You're going to go away because I know there's going to be a lot of drinking. And I don't want you to be around because I'm being a responsible parent. And I do not remember the second half of that day. I was told it was a lot of fun. And I looked at the pictures and I was like, oh my God, I don't have any great pictures of one of the happiest days of my life. And when I reflected on it, I was like, man, I sent my daughter away. And I hate the fact that she wasn't there the rest of the day. And it just kind of gave me that kick in the butt that I needed to say, you've been thinking about this. You've been trying to moderate. You've been trying to cut back for years and years. Like it's time to really, truly take a break. And my big difference was is that when I did sober cis, I did the Annie Grace's alcohol experiment. I did a few different things. And one of my biggest differences was when I took a break, I instead of going, ooh, 30 days until I can have my next drink, it was how do I feel every day? And I really sat in those feelings. And even if it was feeling like crap, I was like, okay, well, I got to learn how to push through this without alcohol. And I was so present and had such a great support system during that time. It just worked. Like I had all the right ingredients at the right time. And that was the beginning of my 30-day break, turning into almost 3 years now.
Oh, well, congratulations,
Thank
and
you.
up now to just lead other women just makes it so full circle and really gives such a like congruency and integrity to like I think what you were practicing in your spirituality, but it was like, but there was always that elephant in the room, and now it's like all
Mhm.
and really truly we're working on not only healing you, but now healing so many other people. Like
Yes.
love that so much. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
obviously you stitch alcohol around the time that you get married, but I'm guessing there's like a dating life before that with your current husband. So I'm guessing there was like a before and an after where alcohol was in the picture with him and then out of
Yeah.
the picture with him. So how did that change your relationship?
Sure. Well, I'm very lucky in the sense that I led our alcohol intake, and I didn't necessarily realize that, but I'm opening the bottle of wine tonight. Would you like a beer? Would you like a Crown and Coke because it's a special night? I was leading it, and so when I told him, hey, I think I need to take a break, and I kind of said it a few times where I was starting to get like, ooh, was I bad last night? I didn't really remember things. So I had to ask him, are we getting those little fights that, everyone's pretty familiar with? And so when I said I wanted to take a break, he was completely supportive. And I'm lucky in the fact that because I was leading it, it was absolutely no problem for him not to drink either. So he really, very rarely will have a drink. Every now and then he will, but in that beginning part, it was incredibly helpful to me for both of us to be going through it. But I didn't really know how to communicate that with him. And but he's been my number one supporter. We're each other's number one supporter all the time. And I think that is a really big key ingredient, by the way, to this journey is having a partner who is like in it with you no matter what. And so one of the things though that I didn't expect was, before this, we were, Tuesday night at 10:30, things would get a little frisky. And now Tuesday night at 10:30, I'm like, Don't look at me. Turn the lights off. Turn the lights off." And I did not expect that at all, Carolina. I knew relationships were going to change. I knew that, okay, I'm not going to go to these parties because I'm not quite ready to be around alcohol, but my intimate life with my husband was not on my list of things to be prepared for. And I'm one of those people who, if I'm not prepared for it, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I didn't even really know how to talk to him about it. I'm worried in my head I was disappointing him. And this is all very internal. And it had a lot to do, what I realized, with my self worth and how much I tied sex with self worth. Because if I look back to the very beginning, hi, George, if you're listening, the first time I was intoxicated. And every time after that, pretty much, I would say 90% of the time. And so I'm not having to relearn how to do something. I'm actually having to learn how to do it because I've never done it without alcohol. And I realized that, through my life, this is what I use. Like, this is how I know that I'm pleasing my man. This is how I know they're happy is I'm giving them this physical attention. And now all of a sudden I can't give my husband this. And by the way, he's my third husband. So I really kind of want this to work. I want to be done. And that's a story for another day. And finally, I said something to him, and I was just like, "I'm really worried that this might cause you to step out, or I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm feeling, but I feel scared." And he goes, "Me too." And I was so like surprised and not expecting that response. But because he had pulled back on the drinking, he was also feeling a little shy to initiate specifically. Our problem was initiation. Once we were there, we're good. But it was the how do we get it started was our problem. And he was having the same exact insecurities I was, maybe tied a little differently, but it was really eye-opening once we had that conversation.
Yeah. I love that like realization you had that like it wasn't something you relearned. It was like, I think all of my sexual experiences were tied to alcohol. And, obviously me thinking back too, that's really much a similar picture for me. I met my husband when I was younger, and like, because we got married long before I ditched alcohol, like I had intimacy with him before, like without alcohol, just because
Right.
mornings and,
Yeah.
let's not get into it too much, but I think I was comfortable enough with my husband, but like looking back before that, like, yep, alcohol always involved. And it's
Hmm.
funny too how like it can be like, okay, here's this new thing to learn, and like how do we broach this and how do we get comfortable with each other? But also how is it negatively impacting, like
Yeah.
nights where like there wasn't that true connection, or there was like a fight brewing, or like you both
Yes.
wavelength or something, or one person doesn't
Yeah.
remember the next day, like, not
Yeah.
good for intimacy either. So you guys will both get to this point. It opens up this vulnerability with you too. So I'm seeing
Hmm.
that moment come from it. So what happens next?
But what happens next? Well, when we were talking through this, and we talked a lot, and I encourage everyone to communicate. And if you don't feel comfortable communicating, or if that skill, because it's a skill set, man, to really be able to communicate with your partner, to ask for help communicating, because having that open line of connection was probably one of the magic ingredient to getting us to a place where we were comfortable. And I had to be really confident in our love and trust in each other to hear things like, for him as a man and having a little bit different needs in the bedroom, he did have to grieve. He does miss that little friskier wife that he might have had. And he had to say that to me. And I had to go, okay, I get it. I'm not sure she can come around quite as often, but I understand, like, he might have liked a little smack on the butt a little bit more often than we're perhaps doing it now. And so we really, really just communicated. And, both of us are really big into learning and researching. And it sounds nerdy, but, just reading as much as we can, because we know we're not the only ones that are experiencing this. And sure enough, we're not. And so, you know, what we really try to do is talk about foreplay and what foreplay actually is to us. And one of the most brilliant things I have ever read, and she does great TED Talks, is by Esther Perel. And she is a psychotherapist, does a lot of couples counseling, not necessarily around sobriety, but just around couples and sex and intimacy. And a lot of us think through a lens of what turns you on. Like, this is what I want in the bedroom. This is what my husband wants in the bedroom. And we can't get to a place of feeling that tingly feeling thinking that way, because foreplay starts much before that. And it's the conversations leading up. It's the experience that you're having earlier that day. It's all the things that are kind of melding together. And so she suggests that you start thinking about your partner, about what draws you to them. What are the things that makes you just want to be closer to them? And a very easy example is distance. So a lot of people, like when I was in California and sober in the city, I'm far away from my husband. I'm missing him. When I come back, that's going to be something that draws me to him. When he's a carpenter and is literally renovating our house, I should say building our house, and to watch him create something from nothing, it makes me so proud to be his woman. I mean, I'm just so happy to be his. And I feel this level of protection and love from him. And it just draws me to him. And for me, he loves seeing me. I teach kickboxing. And when I speak, he loves watching me in my element. And that's what draws him to me. And so we look for these things in each other that that really create this is why I love this person to begin with. This is what drew me to them and why I wanted to talk to them in the first place. And we remind each other that. We say out loud, like if I see him, like right now, he's putting in a vanity and I'm like, baby, is that plumbing almost done? He's like, yes. This is no pun intended, by the way. I realize my example there may have sounded a little punny, but he we say it out loud and he tells me when he's proud of me, and that just creates a intimate connection when we just acknowledge the things that draw each other to each other. We really, to drive intimacy, we have a lot of questions, and I have this little sheet of questions that I'm happy to share with you. We share with our members, and it's things that can help you reconnect again. And so one of my favorite things to ask him before we go to bed is, when did you first know you loved me? What did you first think of me when you saw me? I have heard his response 400 times, and I love it every time. And he asked me the same. And so finding, those ways to rekindle those moments early on have been so much fun. What's your favorite memory of me? When was I the cutest? When do you think I was the sexiest? And answering those questions for each other, I love it. And then usually I'm kind of ready to go. Are there times where I'm still feeling shy, or I'm just like, okay, all right, let's do this. And I got to kind of like gear up for it, like before a game. Yeah. Yep. But guess what? I never regret it. Not even once.
It's just like a workout, right?
Totally. Sometimes, yes, very much so.
I don't know if I'm like reflecting on myself right now or if I'm hearing this from you, but like I think even this idea of like friskiness or this idea of like what's hot, like is coded into us by what we deem is what society wants, right? What like this frisky woman society wants. And there's so much validation behind it. Like, am I putting on a show for you? And who knows, each of our drunk selves were trying to do that without like really being connected to what we wanted, right? And it's just like this, it almost is a form of people pleasing and validation. And now I hear like the most tender, like vulnerable moments where you guys are really building each other up from a true love and intimacy. It's just so different. Like,
yes.
And I really hope that like anyone who's, coming into this and worried about this very thing can see like how real it can really truly be when you put in that work together and that intimacy together versus like the show. It could have been before when alcohol was involved. And was that ever really truly real? Like if it's an inauthentic expression, because we're not fully there, or alcohol is our brain chemistry, like does inauthentic expression ever truly mean like that true deep connection? So thank you so much for bringing these points up, Sarah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that about, society and how much we're programmed to do this show. And it's completely unrealistic. And especially again, having a daughter where I don't want her going into this world thinking these are the things she has to do in order to connect with another human being. And it's, and it's not just pornography, it's Hollywood. It's just the nature of the conversations that we're having. It's the beauty industry. It's the fitness standards. It's so many things. And one of the things that we talk about at Put It Down is like the very first thing to do, even before the conversations really with your partner or in the dating world, is you have to figure out what you love and what draws you to people, what turns you on, get to know yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to spend, hours in the bathtub by yourself. I mean, doesn't hurt, but it also means, read some erotica, watch some, watch some different movies that maybe aren't as graphic, or something that's out there that's tailored to something that's a little bit more soft for you. Or what else? Bubble baths, music, what type of oh my gosh, music can do so many beautiful things to a mood. What is it that you as a human being gives you that feeling of just pure joy? And like in this journey, so many things, it's all about you first. Like you got to figure out your stuff first. Same thing with intimacy, man. We got to figure out what we love. And I'm still working on it, but it's fun to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things like you wouldn't have thought, like for me, for example, I think because of COVID, like, how everything shut down, like just going out to a nice restaurant, like not getting takeout, not sitting at home, like just that act. And then I'm just like, ooh, I was like out on the town with you. You took me out. Like there's still such a romance around that for me. And
I love that.
Small gesture. And then I like personally love my body to be touched. So like not even in this like erogenous zones, like just other places in my body, like my neck, and like that. Like you said, it's such a prelude, like it can happen way before, all throughout the day, almost kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other ideas that you have for me around like getting to know what you like to kind of start this night?
Sure. Ask your girlfriends, man. I mean, like talk to your girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. Ask your friends, have that conversation with people, because people are having it, and do some reading, because I got this book and I wanted to show it to you. It's called Mating in Captivity. This is by Esther Perel, who I was just talking to. And it's just such a great way to learn about what intimacy truly is. And so I encourage you to talk about it, to be open about it, reach out to me, reach out to you. There's a Tawny Laura, who's the sober sexpert, who has a new book coming out in September called Dry Humping, which I'm so jelly she came up with that name because it is hysterical. But it's talking about it is like the best thing we can do, because it's such a taboo thing, and we want it to be not taboo. We want it to be beautiful, and the other thing too, where I think for me, when I start thinking about the embarrassment that I might feel when the lights are on, and even now, like, so I've been almost 3 years sober. My husband and I do have an active sex life, but I still feel nervous sometimes. And so we will literally set the date night. And I know that sounds cliche, and a lot of people are like, oh, if you have to do a date night, then it's over. I'm like, no, it's not. We're busy people, and it gives us something to look forward to. And even if we're both tired and exhausted, it almost becomes a joke. Like, we just got to get through it. We just got to do it tonight. It's good. And then once we're there, we have so much fun, and then we high five each other at the end. But when we start feeling embarrassed, sometimes we get in that shame cycle too, and we start going, I'm not enough, or I don't look the way I'm supposed to, or I'm not delivering something to my partner the way I am, when truthfully they're probably feeling very similar. And one of the interesting things I read is, when we think about what we look for in a partner, we look for safety, we look for protection, right? They're for them to provide for us. I don't mean that masculine, feminine, or I just mean we look for someone to keep us safe, to be domesticated. But we also look for someone to arouse us and have adventures with us and be excited and have that little element of maybe danger in it. And that's really hard to do with one person. So it's okay to have these feelings of discomfort, and just lean into them. And the best thing you could do is talk about it. And sometimes those conversations even become sexy in themselves, because you're talking about a topic with your person that eventually is going to happen.
I love that you threw that out, right? And it goes back to, like, I often talk about the top human needs, how we have a need for certainty and uncertainty. And again, those coexisting together are a hard thing to balance. But even thinking, obviously, right now we're talking about, we're two women talking about our hetero partners. And that is a feminine masculine equation. But like, a lot of times I do work with a lot of women. There's sometimes a tendency to want your partner to do, everything you're doing, to kind of get into the same topics or personal development or alcohol-free lifestyle, and almost like a way to like really like mold the same version of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like the exact recipe for actually losing that arousal, because they lose their own sense of uncertainty and the danger, and like that thing that you really appreciate about them is their kind of power, not like being subdued by someone else, really.
Right.
So it's so interesting, because I think everyone has a moment of thinking that, like, I wish my partner, X, Y, Z. And then sometimes, though, wishing that is actually the opposite of like what you want, because then they're not the man or the powerful person, or however the dynamic that spark that gets lost. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, that could probably be a whole other book, a whole other chapter. But
I love it though that you said that. If I left my husband because he didn't put the dishes in the dishwasher, if I wished that away, and he all of a sudden put all the dishes in the dishwasher, perhaps all of his creativity would disappear with that too. I love that component for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so we have a few tips for people to follow on, really having conversations with their partners, on thinking of like things out of the box, on how to start the kind of arousal process much earlier. Do you talk about like love languages with your partner or anything like that?
Oh, yes. I am words of affirmation. I need to hear, I love you all the time. And that's not his love language. So he needs to be reminded that's what I need. And that's such an important component. I mean, if anyone hasn't read the 5 love languages, I mean, it's just, you don't have to read the book. I mean, there's so many blogs and articles and specials on it and talks, but we all love show love or want to be loved a specific way. And then we tend to show it the way we want to be loved, which that can create a disconnect because our partner might want to be loved a different way. And so therefore they show love a different way. So again, it comes back to that communication bit, which I think is so important. And so I'm words of affirmation and acts of service, and he is acts of service and physical touch. But it's not physical touch like he needs to be intimate every night. It's that light touching he loves. He just wants me to be near him, which, by the way, I love that language too.
That's
I
so great.
really do. I really do.
I am quality time myself. And then my
Yes.
partner is acts of service and also physical touch. And it's so funny to see that dynamic. Like he'll clean the whole kitchen and be like, "Did you notice that I cleaned the kitchen?" And I'll be like, "No, sorry." Like, because that's how obviously he shows love and wants to be loved in return. And like if I were
Right.
something for him, like that would just make him so happy. I'm
Right.
glad I found a husband who
I know, you're right. And
but it
it's
doesn't work
funny.
on me.
That's so funny. But when you're talking about partners on this journey and, other people wanting their partner to be on this journey with them. And I've heard a lot of like, you have to stay in your own lane, which I understand. Putting your journey on someone else and expecting them to do the same is not fair. And it creates a complete divide in the universe. But your partner is in the car with you on this journey. And whether it's about intimacy or how you want to be loved or your journey with alcohol specifically, it is important for our journeys to be respected, both journeys, not just ours, both journeys to be respected, appreciated, and loved. And so I encourage people to, think through the lens of that it's okay to say, I really need this, or I need to explore this, and I need your help in doing so. And even with my husband, whether it's with sex or anything in general, I will say, I am feeling a certain way. I have no idea why, but I'm just feeling a certain way. And I will just throw it out there. I'll vomit the things that are in my heart and my head, because it's important that your partner is there for you to lean on. That's what they're there for. And I encourage everyone to really explore that and have faith in it, and have faith in your partner that they'll deliver what you need.
Oh yeah. I can look back and see so many like trying, like what I thought were trying periods, of like maybe I'm changing and like I don't think he is at the same time, or just like, do we still want the same things?
Yeah.
I was so worried about it. And yet, like, you're so right. The car, and as much as you just open up about what your deep needs are, what you need out of the relationship, how you can support them, all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like you drive together and the road just expands like longer and further than you ever could have imagined it. And like, oftentimes it's like you can now speak to a previous version of you who didn't see it as clearly as you can see it now. Like I just have so much faith for people too. Like I know sometimes relationships obviously don't work out, but like for the most
Of
part,
course.
I have so much faith in that partnership,
Yes.
and that like whether it's an alcohol-free lifestyle or relearning how to love each other both in the bedroom, outside the bedroom. I have all the faith that like the tools, the frameworks are there for you, and that this is just a beautiful bonding opportunity for
Oh,
you.
yes.
You know what I mean?
So is. And I love it. Love every moment of it. Becoming one, man.
Awesome, Sarah. Well,
Also, side note, it doesn't always have to be at nighttime. That's another tip. And I learned that from someone at Sober in the City. She said one of the things that she learned was she thought that sex only counted at night. And so it doesn't. So if you're also communicating with your partner, consider a different time of day or a different room. There you go. There you go. I'm a Tuesday morning.
Oh, Sarah, well, it's so good talking to you. Tell me, where can people find you online and on Instagram?
Thank you. Our website is www.putitdownlifestyle.com. And we are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Put It Down Lifestyle. And we love people following us. We try to do funny reels. We try to do quotes. We try to have blog contributors. So if you're interested in writing or have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to put those in the show notes below. Thank you so much for being on the show, Sarah. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.